Okay, let's jump right in. We usually talk about, big infrastructure projects, numbers on the spreadsheet. But today, the infrastructure we're looking at is a bit different. It's about education.
Human infrastructure, in a way.
Exactly. We're looking at the systems in place to keep our roads safe. And the reason we're doing this deep dive now is because of one pretty startling number.
It is a big one.
We're looking at a potential influx of over 10,800 new teen drivers hitting Delaware roadways. And that's just this school year alone.
And that covers everyone, public, charter, and private schools.
I mean, that's the size of a small town getting their licenses all at once. They all have to be ready.
That scale is, it's staggering, really. And it makes our mission today pretty urgent. Our deep dive is focused squarely on how state-level driver safety education, which is mandatory there, is evolving.
And for our roadmap, we're using materials straight from the Delaware Safety Council, the DSC. We want to understand how a system that is, let's be honest, a bit of a relic in the U.S. today.
It really is.
How it's adapting to new laws, new tech, and all these modern risks. Talking distracted driving, marijuana legalization, all of it.
And you just hit on something fascinating there. The fact that we're even talking about mandatory school-based driver puts Delaware in a very unique category.
Right. Most states have gotten rid of that. They've outsourced it to private companies or just, watered down the requirements. So what do the sources say? Why has this system survived in Delaware?
Well, it's not an accident. Its longevity is it's baked into the state's DNA. Delaware is one of the only states left that still provides driver's ed in the schools.
Which means standardized access for everyone.
Standardized access, and it's not some recent thing. This isn't a new safety push. We have to go back almost 90 years to find the roots.
90 years. Wow.
The current formal driver education course for all public schools was established in 1935. That's a serious foundation.
And it wasn't just, a piece of legislation that was passed?
Yeah. No. That's the key to why it survived. It was a massive multi-agency collaboration from day one. You had the Delaware Safety Council, the State Department of Public Instruction.
Okay, so the education folks.
Right. Then the State Highway Department, the people building the roads, and the Delaware State Police.
The people enforcing the law.
Exactly. When you have police, roads, and schools all building the curriculum together, you create something that's incredibly difficult to just dismantle later on.
That's some serious foresight. And they didn't just stop with public schools.
No, they recognized pretty quickly that they needed to cover everyone, so the program was expanded in 1953 to bring in private schools.
Okay.
And then just a few years later, in 1957, they expanded it again to include parochial schools. The goal was clearly statewide, comprehensive coverage, no matter where you went to school.
And the DSC's influence went beyond just the teens, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. They basically built the entire road safety landscape for the state. They established the original statewide school bus driver training program.
Which is huge.
It's huge. And they also developed and handed out the materials for the school safety patrol program. So they were thinking about everyone who interacts with the road, not just the new drivers.
Okay, so you have this really sturdy 1935 foundation. But you can't teach a kid in 2024 with a textbook from the 50s. The challenge now is bringing that old mandate into the modern age. How are they doing that?
Well, they meet them at a really crucial point in their driving journey. They use something called the SmartDrive Teen Safe Driving course.
SmartDrive Teen.
Yep. And what's important is when it's offered. It's for teen drivers after they've already completed their first phase of the graduated driver's license, the GDL.
So they've got some hours behind the wheel. They know the basics.
They've got the basics down. Now it's time for that deep dive training on the higher level risks. And they can do it in person or online, which helps with access.
And what about the legal side? I mean, laws are changing constantly, especially around things like marijuana. How do they keep the curriculum current?
They're extremely rigorous about it. The curriculum is constantly under review for legal compliance. The sources confirmed it covers the 2023 laws signed by then-Governor Carney, and it includes all the updates to Delaware's motor vehicle laws right through 2024.
And this isn't just a suggestion, right? There's oversight.
Oh, yeah. This all has to follow very strict Delaware DMV certification requirements. They simply can't afford to be teaching kids outdated legal info.
So in this big refresh, the materials pointed to two areas that got major updates. One was expanded rail safety.
Which is vital.
And the other was a significantly overhauled section on marijuana.
And that marijuana section is so critical right now. With legalization becoming more common, you have this huge educational challenge. The core message has to be hammered home.
And what is that message?
That driving high is a DUI, period. No ambiguity.
But the state actually takes it a step further than just the DUI label, doesn't it?
It does. For drivers under 21, Delaware law enforces zero tolerance for marijuana use.
Zero tolerance. So it mirrors the alcohol laws they already know.
Precisely. If you're under 21, impairment is impairment. It doesn't matter what the substance is. The legal consequences are just as severe.
That strong stance is so necessary because the sources we looked at highlight a really worrying finding. The studies are showing that a lot of teenagers believe that driving under the influence of marijuana is actually less dangerous than driving drunk.
It's a huge perception gap.
Why is that belief so pervasive? Where does that come from?
I think it speaks to a wider societal misunderstanding, maybe about how these substances are, portrayed. Alcohol is always linked with very obvious things, like losing motor control, high-speed crashes.
Like very dramatic.
Very. Marijuana, on the other hand, is sometimes seen as more, calming or natural. It doesn't set off that same internal alarm bell for a lot of teens.
They think they can handle it.
They report thinking they can compensate for being high, and they absolutely know they can't compensate for being drunk.
And that idea of compensating is what makes it so dangerous.
Exactly. The science here is crystal clear. Marijuana impairs the key abilities you need to drive safely. We're talking about motor coordination, reaction time.
Which is measured in milliseconds.
Milliseconds between a near miss and a fatal accident. And maybe most importantly, it impairs your judgment of time and distance.
And an inexperienced driver with poor judgment of speed and distance in a 2-ton vehicle. I mean, that's a recipe for disaster.
It's an extremely dangerous equation.
And you can lecture a teenager for hours about reaction time. But that kind of lesson doesn't really sink in until you feel it.
You have to experience it.
Which brings us to the hands-on part of this. The SmartDrive Live programs, like the one they just held at Newark Charter School.
This is where it gets real. It's the difference between reading a warning label on a box and, actually feeling the effect. These in-person programs are all about hands-on engagement with impairment and distraction.
So you're moving the student from just listening to actively understanding.
To a visceral understanding, yes.
So how do you do that? How do you simulate being impaired in a safe, controlled environment? What are the tools?
The main tools are impairment goggles.
Okay, I think I've seen these.
You probably have. They're these specialized lenses, and they're designed to simulate very specific conditions. There are goggles for night driving, for being intoxicated on alcohol, and for being high on marijuana.
And they're not just like silly beer goggles. They're actually calibrated.
They are precisely calibrated to physically show you how your depth perception and your visual acuity are just, poof, instantly compromised.
So what are the activities they do with them? It's not just walking in a straight line, is it?
No, it's a whole curriculum built around simple tasks you think you can do easily. They have them stack cups. They have them navigate little pedal cars through a course.
That's got to be hard.
It's chaos. They do a beanbag toss, golf putting, and yes, they do the classic field sobriety test of walking the line and turning. But the real power is in the contrast.
The before and after.
Exactly. The method is so effective because it gives you immediate personal proof. You do the task first. Let's say it's stacking the cups without the goggles. You set your baseline.
Okay, easy enough.
Then you immediately put the goggles on and try the exact same task again. And that instant change, the loss of depth perception, your hands not doing what your brain is telling them, that's the moment.
That's when the idea of impairment stops being an idea and becomes real.
It bypasses that classic teen mentality of that won't happen to me because you just watched it happen to you. You couldn't stack the cups.
So that covers physical impairment. But today, you could argue the bigger danger is cognitive impairment, the kind we inflict on ourselves.
Yes, and they tackle that head on. They go after the #1 source of non-electronic cognitive load for a teen driver.
The passengers?
The passengers. It's an activity they call passenger distraction.
And that's classified as a cognitive distraction, right? It's literally stealing your brain's processing power.
Precisely. The exercise they use is cube building. So the teen is trying to complete this really demanding spatial puzzle.
Which is like the driving equivalent of navigating a four-way stop with pedestrians.
That's a perfect analogy. And while they're doing this, a passenger, usually another student or an instructor, is actively trying to distract them. talking to them, asking them questions, trying to derail their concentration.
So it's not just background noise, it's an active distraction.
Right. The whole point is to replicate the cognitive load of a demanding conversation happening during a demanding task. It makes that abstract idea of mental bandwidth very, very tangible. You can physically see the performance drop because the cube structure just falls apart.
Okay, let's pivot a little. We've talked about impairment from substances and distraction.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a safety choice that seems so basic, but it's still a huge problem. Seatbelts.
The most fundamental safety measure there is.
And the source material is really blunt about it. Too many teens just don't wear them, and that dramatically increases their risk of dying in a crash.
The excuses are always the same. They forgot, or they have that classic adolescent sense of invincibility. But it's not a choice. It's the law. And it's a life-or-death decision every time you get in the car.
And the data shows this isn't a behavior that exists in a vacuum. It connects to other high-risk choices.
That's the critical linkage here. The teens who don't wear seatbelts are statistically far more likely to do other risky things, especially texting while driving.
And that combination is just deadly.
It's exponential. You combine the cognitive distraction of texting with the complete lack of physical restraint in a crash.
Yeah.
It just magnifies the risk of a fatal collision. It's a whole cluster of bad habits, and buckling up is the first, easiest step to breaking that cycle.
So to fight this, the DSC and its partners run a program called Click for Life.
It's an in-school campaign. Students take an online pledge, a digital promise, to always click for life.
Using the modern world to get the message across.
Right. Participating schools get physical signage, posters for the cafeteria, and importantly, social media Insta-moments.
Yeah.
It makes the safety message a visible social commitment.
So it's not just a private choice anymore. It's a community standard.
That's the goal, to normalize it.
And we're seeing strong school participation. The materials mention Cesar Rodney High School, where the principal, Dr. Kiljowski, kicked off their campaign, and William Penn High School as well. But, pledge campaigns can sometimes feel a bit soft. Does this kind of intervention actually move the needle at a state level?
It absolutely does. And this might be the single most compelling statistic we pulled from the Delaware Office of Highway Safety data.
Okay, lay it on us.
In 2024, the number of unbuckled fatalities in Delaware, so people who died in traffic crashes while not wearing a seatbelt,
Okay.
that number fell by 48.8% compared to 2023.
Wait, say that again? 48.8.
Nearly half.
A 48.8% reduction.
In 1 year. That's a staggering drop. But that can't just be from one pledge campaign, can it? No, and that's the point. It speaks to the synergy of this whole system we've been talking about. The Click Your Life campaign drives awareness, but that awareness is then amplified by the mandatory in-school education, the zero tolerance laws, the hands-on training, increased enforcement.
All connected.
It's all connected. The reduction proves that this constant, multi-pronged approach from that 1935 foundation to a 2024 social media pledge is actually saving lives. It's changing behavior.
What really stands out to me here is this story of enduring adaptability. You have a program that was born almost a century ago when cars were, rudimentary.
Barely, yeah.
And it's still the core mechanism for training thousands of new drivers. And it's constantly being updated to handle these really sophisticated modern challenges: legalized marijuana, zero tolerance, texting, passenger distraction.
There's been a very deliberate shift away from just, passively reading the rules of the road. It's all about actively engaging the driver. The goggles, the cube distractions, the public pledges, they all make the consequences feel immediate and personal.
Which is what you have to do to change those deeply ingrained behaviors, especially in young drivers.
It is.
So what does this all mean for you, whether you're on the road or just interested in what makes for good public policy? Our sources gave us that really stark finding. Teenagers fundamentally underestimate the danger of driving high.
They suffer from a profound bias, a disconnect between their perceived risk and the actual impairment.
And this entire educational effort we've discussed, whether it's through a physical simulation or a legal mandate, is designed to close that gap.
To connect that perception to reality.
Right. And that really leaves us with this final thought for you to consider. In a world with increasing accessibility of substances and just this constant saturation of digital demands on our attention, how effectively can an education system, one that is mandatory, hands-on, and constantly updated, how effectively can it reshape those ingrained biases? Can it ensure that the next generation of drivers truly understands that a compromised mind is just as dangerous as a reckless vehicle? Something to mull over the next time you see a new driver confidently buckle up.